I am officially back on the Zalera book readings after 2.5 years. Well, sorry for the long silence. And so, anyways, I am back on the Zalera book readings since I've done them in 2023, as I keep requesting Kid or Platoon Star to react to some funny parts of this. So he didn't, because this is just explosive. So I'm going to read this book called The Boy King. I'll bet that my friend would love this explosive. It took me. It's been like 2 years since I've read them. Like last year, I watched All Dogs Go to Heaven clips, but I'm not reading one of these. But but this year I'm back. So, anyways, I'm gonna read The Boy King. Take 1. Rue and Isha were bursting with excitement. After 2 years of careful preparation by Professor Bard and Xena, an incredible exhibition of Egyptian treasures was about to open at the Bow City Museum. Rue and Isha couldn't believe their luck when the professor asked them if they would like to help install the exhibition and get ready for the big opening night. They put on the funny purple rubber gloves to protect the objects from microscopic dirt, bugs and oil and on their hands, and under Xena's watchful eye, helped her unpack the crates. The trio worked all day alongside the museum's exhibition staff to fill the waiting display cases and precious items fashioned by people thousands of years before. Wow. Isha gasped, taking a step back as Rue and Xena removed the packing material sheltering the contents of the last remaining crate. Who is that? It is something special, isn't it? Said Professor Bard as he made his way into the gallery to inspect their progress. We didn't know if we would be able to borrow it. The Egyptian Museum in Cairo might not let it tour for decades since it's so fragile. And worth more than the British crown jewels, apparently, added Xena. Yes, the professor smiled. The museum's insurance company was a little taken aback by that. But you really can't keep a price on the opportunity to look into the face of the most famous and mysterious of Egyptian kings. Isha did not doubt it. She felt she could stare at the golden mask for hours without getting bored. Professor, I can't believe you managed to iron Tutankhamun's burial mask, said Rue. I never thought I would see it in real life. Xena carefully placed the mask inside a display case at the center of the exhibition, pulled out a handheld controller, and began typing in a complex series of codes. There was a beeping sound and the glass lid automatically descended. It enclosed the mask, and with a slight sucking sound, and a series of flashing lights clicked into place. In addition to the security casing is being monitored by laser sensors and tracked via the Bow satellite. The tracking is so sensitive that you can determine precisely where in the room a particular object is. You can't be too careful, said Xena, placing the controller in her pocket. We promised the Egyptians the best security and environmental conditions available on the planet, and I certainly like to keep my promises. You sure do invent some incredible technology, Xena, complimented Rue. Would you care to join us for dinner? I have made spaghetti for all the staff to celebrate what is clearly going to a spectacular exhibition, and is going to thank you all for the hard work, said the professor. He smiled contentedly as he looked around the complete exhibition. We would love to, said Rue. Is it alright with you, Professor, if we ask the rest of the Zaleros to come too? Asked Isha, who had gone back to staring at the mask as though slightly hypnotized, and to perhaps let them have a preview of the exhibition before anyone starts crowding in here tomorrow. Of course, said the professor warmly. No doubt the rest of the Zaleros will be as intrigued as you with the wonderful treasures we have here. The mask is incredible, said Amali. The whole exhibition is great, said Ace. Zoro, who is particularly captivated by a trio of mummified cats, barked in agreement. Charlie B. Barkin. I know it's over 3,000 years ago, but I feel sad for Tutankhamun, said Lottie, as she considered a chart listing all the pharaohs of Egypt. Well, he was lucky by becoming king when he was only 9 years old. But then he had to marry his half-sister. What's really sad is how he died of an infection of a broken leg. He was only 18. But he did get to be the ruler of all Egypt, and they built some incredible pyramids that are still standing today, stated Ace. Riding camels through the desert in search of an oasis would have been fun, added Isha. And imagine the adventures to be had by sailing down the Nile, the longest river in the world, said Oscar. Suddenly, an alarm started blaring in the Zaleros raced to display case on the back wall, which is now empty. What's missing? Asked Lottie. There's meant to be a stone bust here. It was the only known image of a Tutankhamun's advisor. He became the pharaoh when Tutankhamun died, Rue explained as he stared into the now empty case. Xena told us how rare this piece was, added Isha. Tutankhamun promised if he died childless, the head of his armies, a man called General Horeb, could become pharaoh. But I took over instead. Horeb later became pharaoh when A died. Horeb must have been angry with I because the first thing he did was remove all the images of he could find all of Egypt. I don't believe it, said Rue, pointing to a nearby scroll. The hieroglyphics of this list of pharaohs have been completely changed. Xena and the professor raced into the gallery to see what set the alarm off. The bust of A's disappeared and the hieroglyphics of this list of New Kingdom pharaohs are different, said Rue, his words almost running together. It's like history has been changed by someone stealing A, added Lottie quickly. A look of great concern spread across the professor's face. Xena pulled out her security controller. Nobody has unlocked the cases since we sealed them, Xena said. There is no way it could have been stolen or the parchment switched. I'm not even picking up any signal, as though A had never been existed. Professor, can you decipher those hieroglyphics? Asked Rue. The professor pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose, as if trying to get a better view. They're like nothing I have ever seen before, he whispered. If anything is missing when the exhibition opens tomorrow, the museum will be ruined, said Xena, and I will have broken my promise. Worse still, said the professor. If something has happened to A and Horeb, Egyptian history will be changed forever. Tutankhamun also could be in trouble. He may die young, but is vital he fulfill the entire 9 years of his reign. I guess we may need to go to ancient Egypt, said Ace. It won't be easy getting close to a pharaoh, sighed Lottie. I'll bet they have loads of protection. One of Tutankhamun's achievements was pharaoh and was to build relationships with other countries, said the professor. You should pretend to be sent by Tushratta, king of Mitanni. Sent for what? Asked Ace wearily. With history changing as we stand here, we may need to improvise, said the professor. I have something that might help you, said Xena, who darted off to grab a scroll. It's a copy I made of a letter given to Tutankhamun by some residents of King Tushratta. It might help. What? Oscar stored the scroll carefully in his backpack. Isha looked again at Tutankhamun's burial mask. Is there any chance, Professor, that we could maybe warn him, or help in some way so he lives a longer life? Asked Isha quietly. I'm sorry, Isha, said Professor Bard. Tutankhamun was and will always be the boy king. Nothing must change the course of history, including yourselves. Isha nodded silently. The Zaleros solemnly joined arms. 4 points of the earth, moon, and sun unite together and become as one. And off to ancient Egypt and Tutankhamun we go! They chanted in unison as they were gone from the museum. Giggling gumballs his hat, exclaimed Lottie. Zora and Ace, who had both landed nose first, were each spluttering with mouthfuls of sand. Oscar began handing around with white robes and head coverings from his backpack. These should help us blend a little, although we may have to rely on Tutankhamun having not actually met anyone from Mitanni anymore, said Rue, slipping on his robe. Can I borrow you for a minute, Ace? Asked Isha, barely waiting for the answer as she climbed onto his shoulders. I can see the burial temples of the west, so we need to head east to reach the city of Thebes. If we walk all that way, we will melt. I vote we pretend the Mitanni ride giant dogs instead of camels, said Ace, and commanded Zora to enlarge. The Zaleros climbed onto Zora's back, and soon they were galloping across the sand toward Thebes and Tutankhamun. As the Zaleros reached the top of another sand dune, they saw a river winding like a fat blue snake through the valley below. The River Nile, Rue cheered. In the fields alongside the river, farmers attended to their crops and animals. I never expected to see so much green in the middle of a desert, Lottie said. And for everything to seem almost normal, added Amali. You hear about pharaohs, mummies, and slaves working to build pyramids, but you never think about regular people in Egypt milking their cows and looking out their windows to see that, interrupted Oscar, who was pointing across the river. Vast cliffs of stone with huge doorways carved into them rose out of the desert, sheltering a silent city of temples and tombs. The Valley of the Kings, marveled Rue. This is where the royalty and nobility of Egypt were buried to begin their afterlife. The exhibition at the museum was great, but this is amazing, said Lottie. Seriously, the Zaleros need to go to the best places. Their excitement continued as they rode into Thebes. Market stalls with colorful fruits and jewelry. Children playing in the sandy streets and dark-eyed women carrying pots of water on their heads. The Zaleros were so busy looking they didn't notice that they had become a sight themselves. By the suns Amon, what is that? Someone yelled. Run for your lives. It's an enormous bear that's going to attack us. A stall holder screamed in panic. Suddenly, 30 soldiers surrounded the Zaleros, their bows and arrows down, and drawn. I don't think they have seen 6 strange children on a giant dog before, muttered Ace. It looks like we have some explaining to do. State your business here at Thebes, strange travelers, demanded the soldier with a large headdress and an impressive shield. We are from Mitanni and come in peace, said Oscar calmly. Slowly he pulled Zena's scroll from his backpack. Everyone eyed the Zaleros suspiciously as the head guard snatched this paper from Oscar's hand. Follow me, the soldier said after he had read the scroll. The remaining soldiers flanked the Zaleros on all sides and marched them through a large gate and into the palace courtyard. They came to a stop, and the head guard disappeared with the scroll through a dark passage to one side of the courtyard. The Zaleros waited. The Zaleros looked around at the impressive palace. What's taking so long? Asked Lottie. Stop fidgeting. We don't want to look suspicious, whispered Ace. I think it's too late for that. Maybe we should make an emergency escape plan, suggested Oscar. The soldier reappeared, followed by a small man with shoulder-length dark hair. He wore flowing robes that glittered in the sunlight. Sons, daughters, and creature of Mitanni, welcome to Egypt and the great city of Thebes. I am Maya, assistant to the king. His Majesty wishes that I take you to meet him. He's most keen to hear of life in the land of Mitanni, and for you to take back to King Tushratta the bonds of everlasting friendship and peace. Thank you, Maya, answered Rue, jumping from Zora's back so he could bow gracefully to the man. We are honored and most keen to meet His Majesty as soon as possible. Excellent. Please come this way then, said Maya, smiling broadly. The Zalaris followed him into the palace. The Zalaris walked down a vast maze of stone corridors and endless rooms. They knew they would have never found Tutankhamun without Maya to guide them. Thank you for your kindness, Maya, said Ace. I am here to help, replied Maya, lowering his head slowly. Great, Ace replied quickly. King Tushratta would like us to speak with His Majesty's senior advices. I am General Horem. It's hard to say that. Would they be available during our visit? A shadow seemed to pass over Maya's face and his dark eyes turned an eerie green color. His Majesty has only one advisor, Salinor. There has never been any other, for none could serve the king so well as he. Maya blinked and the shadow passed. He smiled at Ace as though nothing happened. Follow me, my young friends. We must not keep His Majesty waiting. Did you see how Maya's eyes turned green and started to spin? It was almost like he was under a spell, whispered Ace to the others. I don't remember reading about anyone called Salinor, said Rue. As they moved deeper into the palace, the wealth and power of the pharaoh became clear. There were walls painted with colorful images of kings and gods. Beautifully decorated vases lined one entire hallway. Flowing gold and blue textiles covered the next. As they turned another corner, there stood two statues of carved stone, their heads almost touching the ceiling, guarding doors made entirely of gold. Through here is the Hall of the Moon. I shall let His Majesty know you are here, said Maya, and he heaved one of the huge doors open slightly and slipped into the room beyond. And have you noticed that all the decorations have images of eagles everywhere you look, said Rue. There are meant to be different animals in Egyptian artwork, like cats, crocodiles, and scarabs. Beetles, Isha added. Why they insert crocodiles? King Gator doesn't make any sense. Engraved in the gold doors, there was the image of an Egyptian boy, seated and wearing the crown of the pharaoh. On his shoulder sat an eagle that looked strangely familiar. Wings outstretched and wrapped around the boy's shoulders like a living cape. In all our research on Egypt, the only birds that were mentioned were ravens rather than eagles, mentioned Ace. I think this is an important clue. And look at all the statues guarding the doors, said Amali, pointing upwards. They look like the king's soldiers, but they have eagles with wings spread wide instead of eyes. Maya suddenly appeared around the golden doors and waved for the Zalaris to follow him. The walls in Tutankhamun's reception room glowed with colorful jewels and paintings. Men and women stood or sat elegantly on either side of the huge room. Many of them wore brightly colored stones around their necks that shone against their white robes. There was a lady in the corner playing a beautiful tune on the harp. At the end of the room, a raised platform with Tutankhamun rose from his throne, supporting himself with a cane. He wore a golden robe and headdress of gold inlaid with strips of dark blue stone. Isha was reminded sadly of the burial mask she had seen at the museum. Welcome to Egypt. I send my best wishes to King Tushratta and the people of Mitanni. We are honored by your visit and the gifts which King Tushratta has been so generous as to send with you. The gifts, said Ace very slowly, having to think quickly. Well, the thing is, the gifts are us. King Tushratta has sent us so that we may entertain you. A gesture of friendship between our two nations. Amali nodded at Ace and began an impressive acrobatic display that would have won her a gold at the Olympics. When she had finished, Isha read from a scroll that was held open by the king's scribe on the other side of the room. Lottie then rollerbladed around the room by blowing a huge pink balloon bubble that soon lifted her into the air. Rue beat four of the king's best players at chess. Oscar successfully lassoed every statue in the room, including the ones that hung from the ceiling. To finish, Ace cooked pancakes for everyone, while Zora gave rides to those brave enough to come near him. Bravo, bravo, cheered Tutankhamun, clapping his hands. Everyone in the hall joined in applause. Nobody has ever sent me such a surprising and entertaining gift. I can see King Tushratta, and I will be great friends. Thank you, your majesty. He will be most pleased to hear of your enjoyment, said Isha. As Tutankhamun returned to his throne, the Zaleros saw the most familiar image with embroidered across the back of his robes, wings outstretched. The eagle, whispered Ace. I am most keen to try your mouth balloon, Tutankhamun said, pointing at Lottie. Lottie smiled and presented him with a freshly unwrapped piece of gum and proceeded to show the king how to chew it and blow very small bubbles. Very good, your majesty, Lottie said as encouragingly as another pink bubble burst on Tutankhamun's nose. The golden door slammed shut, and a hush fell over the Hall of Amun. Salinor, there you are, said Tutankhamun, as a faint green light seemed to suddenly flicker behind his eyes. You missed an incredible performance from our visitors. King Tushratta was most generous, keep sending these children of Mitanni to entertain us. A tall, silver-bearded man in long green and purple robes strode down the center of the hall, an eagle seated on his shoulder. The Zaleros turned at the sound of the familiar voice. King Tushratta sent them, did he? The man replied, his voice dangerously polite. How nice. I am sorry I missed their little show. The Zaleros gasped as they recognized Sorcero and his eagle, Aquila. Instantly they knew just how much trouble Egypt was in. This explains why there are images of eagles everywhere, whispered Oscar. This is Salinor, said Tutankhamun to the Zaleros. He is my chief advisor and helps guide us along the true path of the gods intended. If something unexpected happens to me and I have been unlucky enough to leave no living children, Salinor will rule in my place. Greetings, Salinor, said Ace, not letting on to Tutankhamun that he knew Salinor's true identity. Your Majesty, I have met this charming group of children before, and I do indeed have many talents. I also recall they especially love peppermint chocolate, said Sorcero as he handed each of the Zaleros a piece, which they felt strangely compelled to eat. Now I believe, your Majesty, it is time for you to go to bed, Sorcero added. Egypt needs a strong and healthy ruler. I will show our visitors to their lodgings. Lodgings that personally make them welcome. He smirked at the Zaleros. Follow me. The Zaleros had no wish to follow the wizard, but they found they had no choice. Their eyes were spinning and gave off a green haze while their feet moved as if propelled by something outside their own mind. No matter how hard they tried, they felt compelled to follow Sorcero's billowing robes and tap-dancing feet. Aquila flew behind the Zaleros, watching their every move. Even though the peppermint chocolate had hypnotized the Zaleros' bodies, they could still talk to each other. What is he doing here? Whispered Lottie to the gang. They descended a narrow flight of stairs that led to a dark room filled with books, bubbling potions, board games, and an entire cabinet of peppermint chocolate. The room was lit by the flickering green light of a fireplace. An excellent question, Sorcero said, turning to face them, his body blocking the doorway they had just marched through. There's a book passed down between pharaohs, a record of secrets and magic uncovered by generations of clever Egyptians, said Sorcero. There are spells with the key to eternal life. No pharaoh ever understood the power of the book, but it will help me live forever as the most powerful king in the world. But Tutankhamun's not just gonna hand it over to you, said Rue. No, unfortunately, he is not as easily controlled by others, but I managed to get those pesky advisors out of sight, and now the boy has made me heir to their throne, and I will not have to wait long. Very soon, the book and the throne will be mine forever, and you Zaleros are not going to get in my way. Sorcerer and Aquila disappeared in a flash of green lightning. The door locked fast behind them, leaving the Zaleros trapped. "We have to stop Sorcerer before he gets his hands on the spell book," said Ace. The Zaleros searched for the room for any possible means of escape. Two stone statues stood either of the fireplace. The familiar stone eagles spread across their eyes. "I'm not sure these are normal statues," said Rue. "Their faces look very similar to the stone busts I've seen of Einhor and Mib." Ace placed the zero next to one of the statues and could hear muffled sounds of yelling coming from the statue. "It's A, and he says that Salinor has used his witchcraft to turn him and Horm into statues." "We have to help them," exclaimed Isha. "First, we have to get out of this room. Then, if we could break Sorcerer's magic hold over the palace, that we should free Einhor and stop Sorcerer from causing any more problems," said Ace. "Sorcerer will have us locked in here with a spell which blocks the power of our medallions from transporting us," said Oscar. "But perhaps we can use this magic instead. This doesn't look like a normal fire." Oscar tossed a piece of BFA in the fire. Amazingly, it didn't burn. It simply floated in the flames for a moment and was suddenly into what appeared to be another room. "I don't know where it went, but I think I should go too," said Ace. "I'll bet the Sorcerer created a secret passage so he could carry out his evil plans," added Amali. The Zaleros stepped into the fireplace and was sucked into a room of almost entire gold. What really took their attention was a gigantic gold bed covered in rubies. All of a sudden, a head popped up from the bed. "How did you get into my bedchamber?" said Tutankhamun. "Your Majesty," said Ace, bowing low, "there is no easy way to say this. Salinor wants to take over as ruler and claim the first secret book. He's not what you think. He's a wizard from other time. He has trapped your two advisors and has some sort of magic over the palace. He may be on his way to harm you right now," added Isha. Tutankhamun stared into the green flames of the fire. "I have noticed the strange presence fall over the palace. I feared the gods were angry." Tutankhamun spoke slowly. "Salinor seems to have such power over people. We have to stop him," urged Isha. "The wizard and his birds spend a great deal of time in the astronomy tower listening to music. Maybe they were doing more than practicing new dance steps," Tutankhamun said, pointing upwards. "Let's go." "Salinor isn't the only one who has created hidden passages," said Tutankhamun as he pulled a hidden lever on this golden bed, which caused the wall to open. "Awesome! I want one of these in my room," exclaimed Lottie. "This staircase will take us to the tower. But before we go, we should drink all this special potion, which will protect us from Salinor's spells," said Tutankhamun. The Zaleros thanked the pharaoh and drank the huge blue mixture with pink bubbles. It made them all hiccup. Tutankhamun led the Zaleros up the staircase and into the astronomy tower. In the middle of the room was a very large stone eagle that appeared to be looking at them. "Wait," said Isha, "what's that thing in its mouth?" Amali left under the eagle's stone head. "It's a green crystal ball, and you can see the entire palace in it," she answered. "Amali, don't touch it," yelled Ace. "I'll bet that's how Sorcerer is keeping the palace under his control. We have to destroy the crystal ball, but we must contain it first, or we could keep the magic stronger." Lottie pushed 10 pieces of gum into her mouth, and her cheeks puffed out as she could, the thickest, strongest bubble she could. She rollerbladed up the eagle's back and carefully placed the bubble over the crystal ball. When the pink balloon was sealed shut, Oscar lassoed it and swung it around and around before blinging it out of the window. There was a loud explosion and bits of pink sticky gum went all over the ground before the green haze of magic fizzled away. The curse on the palace is broken. "We did it!" exclaimed Isha as the stone eagle cracked in two. Sorcerer's cry of "No!" echoed throughout the palace. There was a sudden downpour of rain and flashes of lightning overhead. Then the palace filled with sunlight and the sound of cracking stone could be heard below. "Your Majesty, I think this might be a good time to meet your true advisors. It sounds like Salinar has resigned from the job, said Lottie with a smile. Thank you for returning the gift of the gods to my kingdom. I shall always remember you when I turn my face into the sunlight, said Tutankhamun, bowing his head to the Zaleros. You must come and dine with me to celebrate. I think we've got time for a bit of celebrating. I think we've got time for a bit of celebrating, but as long as we're home for the exhibition opening, said Isha, we wouldn't want to miss out on seeing the amazing Egyptian artifacts, laughed LaRue. What the heck? The pink... Let's make music to get Harvey. What's with the feek as this Harvey knee slapper image? Q's mouth is close up.